Throughout all the videos that you are about to watch, I talk about many different things, including a story about my grandma. Before you get into all the other videos, it would be good to listen to that story. So we're going to watch that in this video in a minute. But when you're watching this, I'd like you to keep in mind what I had in mind for this story. Why am I using this story? I've used this story several times throughout the years because there's a message involved. The message that I wanted to get across is to really pay attention to what your audience wants. The story of my grandma shows how my grandmother did that and how it created success for her. I've used this story about my grandma in several different occasions. The one you're about to see is from a presentation I did in Manchester, in England. This is my grandma. My grandma was 92 when she died. She died over a decade ago. But my grandma was actually the first one that taught me about marketing. Without her knowing what marketing actually was. She didn't even know the word marketing, but she taught me the most valuable lessons that I'm still using. My grandmother, this one, she was different. She figured, okay, I want to gain the trust of my grandchildren, and I want to gain that trust because I want them to come to me with every problem they have, whether it's about school or whatever problem, I want them to come to me. Now, a 16, 17-year-old doesn't automatically go to his grandma to talk about his problems. So she figured I have to get in touch with him first. So in my case, she started researching all the grandchildren and started looking at what is it that they're actually doing, what is it that they like. Now, in my case, it was pretty easy. I'm a football fan. I like Ajax. I lived in Amsterdam at the time. I visited games. So it was quite obvious that she needed to understand Ajax, at least football. Now, football fans here will know this. John, you will know this as well. If somebody comes up to you, if you have a passion, and somebody comes up to you and start talking about that passion, your automatic response will be, if you realize this person doesn't really know about my passion, your automatic response will be, yeah, it's nice. So when my sisters, for example, when they start talking about football, I just okay. Because they asked the most stupid questions. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to talk with you about football just because you think that will be nice and that we can actually bond or something. No, we don't do that. You only bond if somebody actually understands your passion. So the first time my grandmother started talking about football, that was my first response, like, oh, okay, she's going to try and be nice and talk about football. And then I started to listen. I was like, wait a second, she actually knows what she's talking about. She knew who had played. She knew the players. She knew the coach. She knew what the coach had said after the game. She actually understood offside. I was like, oh, wow, that's nice. And I started chatting with her about football, and I even got that far. At one point, I remember being at her house, and I cycled to her house to have dinner, and I realized, oh my God, Ajax is playing tonight. I'm not going to be able to see that game, so I'll watch the highlights when I get back. And I'm having dinner with my grandma. After dinner, we sit down for a cup of coffee, and she had this big brown chair, and she sat down on the chair, and all of a sudden, she started moving around. It was going like that, and I was like, oh my God, she's having a heart attack. So, Grandma, you're right. She said, yeah, no, I'm fine. But do you mind if I put on the game? Because I really want to see it. I was like, oh, okay. But at that point, she had embraced my passion so much that she started loving it herself. The thing is, however, from that time on, from the time I understood that my grandmother knew about football, I started to trust her on all other elements as well. So I came to my grandma to talk about girls, to talk about, I don't know, school results, whatever. She gained my trust by first making a move towards me. And that's what marketers need to do as well. Marketers these days are too much still trying to get their own message across, trying to convince us. But if you want the trust of your audience, you first need to step towards them. You really need to understand your target audience, not just understand that they like football, but understand what football actually is. So, I hope you liked the story about my grandma. The story is going to be referenced to in several of the videos that you're about to watch.
This is one story. I've used many different stories throughout all my presentations. I might refer back to some of them as well. If you want to see more of those stories, there's a link below this video that you can click on and you can see more of these stories.